Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are preparing for the 2025 UTME or the JAMB examination, this video is for you. I'll be sharing secrets that can make a big difference in your preparation on what to do before the examination, on the examination day, and even after the examination. These tips will help you avoid common mistakes and increase your chances of success. So stay tuned and let's get started. Before the examination, here are 10 tips that will aid your preparation, and these tips will be discussed in subsequent sections of this video. So tip number 1 is understanding the UTME syllabus. Now the syllabus is a map or a guide for every student preparing for the UTME examination. That syllabus is a gold mine because it has a lot of information that will help you as a student. Now it is very painful when you see students picking any random book of their choice and then they just start reading. That's not the first thing you expect to do as a student preparing for the examination. The first thing is that you get the UTME or the JAMB syllabus. Now we have a typical example of the syllabus on the screen. Every syllabus has 2 columns. On the first column, there are topics or content or note which they expect you to read. Then on the second column, there are objectives. Now for the topics, there are certain topics JAMB wants you to read and know very well. For example, the first topic in this biology syllabus is living organism. So they expect you to know or to read the characteristics of living things. They expect you to read the cell structure and function of cell component. Then they expect you to also know the levels of classification of living organisms. So when you are reading, you should read with a mind that you want to actually know these 3 topics or these 3 subtopics in this particular column. Then when you are done, you then move to objective. For me as a student, while I was preparing for the UTME, the objectives were like questions for me to answer. So when I finish reading, I'll close the book, then pick up the syllabus, then I'll look at the objectives critically. For example, the objective here is that candidates should be able to differentiate between the characteristics of living and non-living things. So I'll then ask myself, can I differentiate between living and non-living things? If I can, it means I understood that aspect of that topic. But if I can't, that tells me that I didn't really understand that particular topic. So what I do is that I'll just go back to my textbook and read up on that portion again to make sure that I have a solid knowledge on that particular area. Now the syllabus can be gotten from the JAMB official website, or you can download it online, or when you do your UTME registration, you will most likely be given the syllabus either as hard copy or as a CD plate. So secondly is getting the approved study material. I will say getting the reliable study material. Like I said, most students they pick random textbook and just start reading, but that's not what a good student who has the goal of getting a very high score in the JAMB examination should do. Now going back to the syllabus which we talked about in tip 1, at the end of every syllabus there are recommended text. So when you scroll to the end or you flip to the last page, you are going to see recommended text for every particular subject. For example, we have the one for biology displayed on the screen. So in this recommended text, JAMB has recommended textbooks like Senior Secondary School Biology, Essentials of Biology, Biology for Senior Secondary School, and the likes. Now, why is it important to use the approved study material? It's just like there's a teacher who will set a test for you, and the teacher tells you that, oh, I'm going to use this particular textbook in setting this exam for you. And on the day of the exam, the teacher fulfilled that promise. So if you read that textbook, there are high chances you pass the examination. But if you did something else, there are chances that you may not score as high as the person who has read the textbook. So now JAMB has recommended some textbook and says, oh, read these textbooks and focus on them very well. So you using them is to your own advantage. Then when you have finished reading any of them, you don't necessarily have to read all of them, but you can just pick one and read it very well. Then you can then pick up any random textbook just to solidify your knowledge on that particular subject area. For example, in English, there are recommended books like Exam Focus and The Invisible Teacher. So reading this book should give you an edge over those persons who are just reading any random textbook. And by the way, some students may just look for short materials, like they could just pick up some 50 pages summary on, let's say, biology or chemistry or whatever subject, and when they finish reading, they'll think they are done. No, you are not done, because you just read the summary, which does not actually cover that subject area effectively. So moving on, our third tip is utilizing your past question. Now, most students, they just read and read and read and read and read without using their past question. So that's not ideal for a student preparing for the UTME. So now, the beauty about your past question is that when you are studying your past question, that does not mean that whatever question you see there will be repeated word for word in the examination. No, that's not the goal of using a past question. The first thing is that using your past question, it tells you about how they set their question or their question pattern. Now, let me give you a typical illustration. When I was preparing for the UTME, when I was reading gas laws in chemistry, we know our gas laws from Boyle's law to Charles' law and the likes. You know, when you are solving questions, they'll tell that probably the pressure is this particular millimeters of mercury. They always give us values. So till I came across the past question, for example, this is a typical example on the board. The question says the volume of a given gas is VCM cube at P millimeters of mercury. What is the new volume of the gas if the pressure is reduced to half at a constant temperature? So if you see the options, some are 4V, 2V, V over 2 and V. So if a student who have never studied the past question come across this, the student may think that the question is incomplete because the person wasn't giving values. But no, this question is actually complete and it can be solved. So using your past question tells you about how they set their question so that you don't get to the hole and find things strange. Another thing is that practicing your past question help you to identify patterns. Like I said, you know their patterns. So JAMB may not give you questions that have values. They might just give you with alphabet or algebras like this, and then you should be able to solve. And then practice your past question also help to improve your speed and accuracy. I remember there are some questions when I come across them, I'll just be like, oh, I've solved the question like this, so I should know the pattern of solving that question, and that will give me an edge or a speed in answering my questions. So another thing is that answer your past question also help you to identify your strength and your weakness. So you probably have read a topic like gas laws, and I come across this topic or this particular question and I'm not able to answer it. It tells me that I have a gap in my knowledge in this particular area. So that should make me to visit my book and read that particular part. So moving on, the fourth thing is time management and effective study habit. I would say this is one point where most students miss it. Now, as a student preparing for the exam, you have just few months left to prepare for the exam. So you shouldn't feel so relaxed and think that the time is all yours. No, you have to develop a good time management, and then you have to develop an effective study habit. Now, the first thing I would tell students is that it is important to study smart and not just by studying longer. Yeah, smart study beats long study. Now, it's not by sitting on the chair on your table and reading for like 24 hours. You might just end up gaining knowledge within the first 30 minutes, and the rest time might just be a waste to the student. So smart study is very, very important. So learn how to divide your studies, and this will help you better. Now you have just some few months. You can probably take up the book and divide it into the portions you can read at certain time. So always learn to split your reading. That's why we have different techniques like summarization. So while you are reading, you can make notes. Also, their use of mnemonics. This is very, very important. I remember when I was reading redox reaction in chemistry, there was one part I found confusing. That's the difference between reduction and oxidation. But when I came across the acronym OILRIG, OILRIG, the acronym of the mnemonic just made it easier for me. So I could tell from that mnemonic that oxidation is loss of electron. That's the OIL. Then the RIG tells me that reduction is the gain of electron. So when you find things difficult to memorize, you can create acronyms or mnemonics to easily remember them. And next is active recall. Now, active recall is very, very important. So when you have read at some point, you can take breaks and then just ask yourself, oh, what I've read, can I actually remember them? So that will help you better to record these things. So probably I just read on living organism. So while I'm away from the book, I can just ask myself, oh, what's living organism? Then what are the classes of living organisms? Then what are the cell structure and function? So when you do this, it helps to boost your memory, and for such information you hardly forget them. So the next is that you should study in bits. There's a technique called the Pomodoro technique. Now, what's the Pomodoro technique? It's just a technique that helps you to divide your study. So Pomodoro technique says that you can study for like 25 minutes, then go on a break for like 5 minutes, then come back again for 25 minutes. So you keep alternating it. So that breaks helps to refresh your memory on that particular topic area. So it's very important, because if you try to read for a long time, like I said, you may just end up gaining knowledge for the first 30 minutes and the rest time might just be a waste to the individual. So the best thing to do is that you can study for the first 25 minutes while your brain is still fresh, then go on a break for like 5 minutes, probably to take water or to chew something, then you come back again. At that point, you are feeling refreshed to continue the journey. Then after another set of time, you go on a break. You just keep repeating the circle, and that will help you. And one other thing is that you can also set targets or set goals for yourself. So you can probably say that, okay, today I'm going to do this and do that. So that should guide you while reading. And lastly, before we leave this point, is effective study habit. So one thing I see students doing that does not really help them is that they'll be like, oh, my friend read during the night, so I must also read at night. One thing is that you should understand yourself in person. If you are good reading during the day, try to maximize the day and read very well. If you are good or you prefer reading at night, try to maximize the night. Then if you can combine both, do both as well. But that should not limit you from going the extra mile. So if you can read at night, just read at night, then but also stretch that into the day. If you can read during the day, try to maximize the day, but also go into the night, because your exams are fast approaching and you have a lot to cover. But in all, try to stick with whatever works best for you, because some persons might go to read at night. They'll be like, oh, I'm going to read this night too. Then when they go for that class, they might sleep throughout the entire class. Then when they come back the next day, they'll continue that sleep cycle. At the end of the day, you find out that you have wasted probably a day in doing nothing. So try to stick with what works best for you. So number 5 is study groups. Now, study groups are very, very powerful academic association. The reason is that study groups help you to share idea and knowledge. So it's very important. For example, let me give you a typical example. Probably you have a study group and you guys are supposed to read a topic in biology. Probably let's say you are reading living organism. Remember, JAMB recommended about 8 or 9 textbooks for some different particular subjects. So probably I'm reading textbook A, and the next person is reading textbook B, and the next person is reading textbook C. Then we say that, okay, let's go home, read this particular topic. Then the next day we'll come and share ideas or knowledge. Remember, you are reading just one particular textbook, and then the other person are reading their own different selected textbooks. Then when you come back during your course of study, you'll find out that you end up sharing knowledge. For example, now I can say, oh, I saw this in my textbook, oh, and then the next person didn't see it. The other person can say, oh, I saw this particular stuff in this textbook, and probably you didn't see it. So by so doing, you are able to share knowledge. You might not have read that textbook, but during the course of that discussion, you have gained something from that textbook which was not in your textbook. I remember in my study days, we went on reading something. Then one of my friends came and said, during random discussion, he just said, this part also has another name. We're like, wow, wonderful. He didn't tell us the name. Then funny enough, I was writing an exam and I saw that particular question doing it a different way, but it made me remember what that guy had told me. If I was not there, I would have missed that discussion because I have not read the textbook, or I didn't read the textbook that other guy read. So the next thing is that study group also help you to match your goals. You know how well you are leveling up, because when you're in a study group, probably you see your friends that they are doing well ahead of you. You might also want to like pick up and try to meet up with whatever they are doing. Probably you are in their midst and you can't really see much in a discussion. You know that there's a gap in your knowledge and you have to match up that gap. And lastly, study group should be people of your own group, people that have the same interest as you do. So if, for example, now you want to study a course like medicine, so people in your study group should be that same set of persons that also want to study medicine. It should not be you want to study medicine and your other friend says he or she wants to study theatre. There's no way such study group can function, because when you say okay, let's do biology, the other person will say no, let's do government. When you say let's do chemistry, the other person will say no, let's do literature, and you don't need those subjects. So persons in your study group should be people that align with your goals and with your vision, people that want to see you do well academically. So moving on, the sixth tip is taking of mock tests. Now I find it painful when I see students running away from mock tests. Now the mock test can either be a paper and a pen test or a computer-based test. Any of them, as a student, it is very important you familiarize yourself with the CBT process. Now never be afraid that, oh, I have not read much, if I take this exam I may fail. Now getting any score there does not determine your risk score in the UTME. The thing about taking mock is that, number one, you familiarize yourself with the CBT process and then you reduce anxiety. And when you do this, you know how to operate the computer. That it makes you to familiarize yourself with the computer. You know the various keys like S for submit, N for next, P for previous, and the rest. So second, it also helps you to reduce anxiety, because you'll be like, oh, I've written this exam before, I have a taste of the exam, so it's not something new to me. But going there for the very first time, you might feel so anxious because that's the first time you are using the computer. Secondly, the mock also helps to build your level of confidence and also help you to identify your weak areas. So if you take a mock and probably at the end of the day you get 180, that does not call for any fear or thinking, oh, you have failed the exam. It just tells you that, oh, you are not doing well enough and you have to sit up and do very well. So as a student, one thing I never did was run away from mock tests. No matter my level of preparation, I would just take the mock test and see the outcome. If the outcome comes out well, you just tell me that, oh, you still have to do more. If it's very bad, it tells me that I have to intensify my effort and see how I can push on. So also the JAMB also organizes mock exam, but some students may also ignore it. But like I've said, the way to engage in mock exam, whether the one organized by the JAMB body or the one organized by your schools or your lecture houses or private individuals, it will actually help you a lot. So don't shy away from the JAMB mock test. Tip number 7 is leveraging on technology. This simply means using technology to your own advantage as well as aiding your preparation for the examination. Now, how can you leverage on technology? You can practice with JAMB simulation apps like the JAMB Prep Master, the Prep 50, the My School CBT app, and even the Test Drill application. Now, these applications will give you a feel of the real exam condition. So you don't have to wait for your school or your lecture houses or even the JAMB body to conduct mock tests for you. Rather, you can take this mock test at your own convenience using your phones or your laptop. Secondly, you can also benefit from technology by watching tutorial video on various learning platforms like YouTube. For me, I consider YouTube as a place where you can easily access information on different subject areas. Now, if you find a topic difficult to understand, what I usually do is that I just go to YouTube, search for that particular topic. Then if I have a channel in mind, I can add the name of the channel alongside. Then what I do is that I just simply watch the video. Then that video makes it easier for me to understand when I go back to the book. So when I finish watching the video and I go back to the book and I'm reading it at a very fast pace and I will easily understand it. So I don't have to struggle trying to understand the various sentences in the book. Now you can learn from various learning platforms like the Warren Science Academy, on which you are currently watching this video. You can also learn from channels like Nurse Bright, where you can access chemistry and biology simplified video. You can also learn from the Our School Academy. You can also learn from the Khan Academy, also the Organic Chemistry Tutor, and then Professor Dave's Explain. These channels I just listed will favor or will be of benefit to the science student. Moving on, the next tip is constant revision. Now, as a student, yes, you are trying to cover more ground for your exam and you are reading and reading and reading. One thing you should not fail to do is to carry out constant revision. Once in a while, those things you have read or those jottings you took, try to revise them once in a while. So when you are reading, most times some persons do jot, or you attend classes and you're giving notes. Don't just leave that note and say, oh, I've done this stuff before, it is good for you to go back and revise it, because constant revision boosts retentive memory. Like we said when we talked about effective study habit, we talked about active recall. So going back to it might make you see some parts you don't actually understand. That's why constant revision also helps to identify one's weak area. I have been in situations where I thought I've read a topic and I understood the topic very well. Probably at the time of reading that topic, I feel like, oh, I actually understood this topic. But going back, I found out, oh, I don't even remember this formula anymore, or I don't remember this particular value. So when you go back and revise it, you tend to see some things you have forgotten, and this will help to boost your retention. Now, the next is the UTME registration tip. Now, this is very important for those who are yet to register for the examination, or even those who have registered for the examination. So while preparing to register for the examination, what are those things you should have in mind? Number one, you should confirm your age eligibility. As at last year, JAMB passed a policy that students who are not up to 18 will not be allowed to write the examination. But after certain review, they brought that age limit to 16. So that means that students who are not up to 16 years cannot register for the examination, or will not be allowed to write the examination. But if you know you'll be 16 years by August 31st this year, you can still register for the examination and you'll be allowed to take the examination. So do it to confirm that you are within the age limit. Next is having the right subject combination. Now, for every course you desire to study in university, there are 4 subject combinations for those particular courses. So you cannot just jump and pick any random subject because you like this subject and you don't like the other one. For example, if you want to study medicine and surgery in university, your 4 subject combination will be the use of English, biology, physics, and chemistry. Or if you want to study engineering, your subject combination will be the use of English, mathematics, physics, and chemistry. So if there's a student that wants to study medicine and surgery, and the student ended up registering for English, government, economics, and CRS, that student will not be able to register or will not be able to get admission into medicine and surgery because the student combination does not align with that course. So before registering, try to find out what are the right subject combination for that particular course you have in mind to study. So the next is creating your JAMB profile using a valid phone number. Emphasis on the word valid. That phone number you are using should be easily accessible. It should not be any random number you just think from your head, just be like, okay, 00. No, don't just do that. You are to use a valid phone number, and if need be, that phone number should be your personal phone number, because this profile code is what you need during the registration process. It's just like going to the bank to withdraw money and you put in your ATM card. The next thing the machine asks you is your PIN. If you don't have a PIN, there's no way you are going to withdraw money. So if you don't have a profile code, there's no way you go to register for the examination. And how can you generate your profile code? You can send NIN as a text message with a space, just as what you have on the screen. Then enter your NIN digits and you send that message to 55019 or 66019. Again, you are going to send NIN with a space and then your NIN digits to 55019 or 66019. So the next thing is that you should ensure that all the details on your documents are correct and there are no differences. This is very important. So if you are using just 2 names, let's say your first and your last name, ensure you stick with that first and last name. Don't introduce a middle name anywhere. So that should tally with all your other documents, your WAEC result, your NECO result, your birth certificate, and the like. So if you are using 3 names, ensure that you use these 3 names in order of your document. So don't use 3, don't use 2, and don't even try to change your first name with your last name, or your last name with your first name. So if your first name is A, ensure that in all your documents your first name is A. If your last name is C, ensure that in all your documents your last name is C. And every other detail should be correct. For example, your local government should be the same across all your documents. It shouldn't be something else in your work result and something different in your NECO result and something else in your birth certificate. It should be the same. Your date of birth and all of that should be correct, because if this is not correct or there are differences, it will affect your chances of getting admission. And even when you want to do correction for these particular details, they are quite expensive. on the JAMB portal. So the next is registering at is JAMB accredited CBT center. Now there are certain centers that have been specified by JAMB for you to do your registration. You cannot just do your registration anywhere, or you can't even use your phone to do your registration. You must go to an accredited CBT center. So you can just take your phone and type for JAMB accredited CBT center within your locality, and you will find the one closest to you. Don't just walk into any cyber cafe and tell them, oh, you want to register for JAMB. So they can just take your money and do a false registration for you, and at the end of the day you won't be able to write the examination. So the next is that you should pay attention to biometrics and your picture capturing. Your biometric, which is your fingerprint, every individual has a unique fingerprint, and every individual has a unique picture. Your picture is different from the other person, and your biometrics, your fingerprint, is different from the other individual. Don't allow someone to try to use his or her fingerprint for you. Probably you were trying to register. I encountered this when registering for the exam. When I placed my finger, the system was not capturing my finger. Then the man was like, oh, let him use my finger. So I didn't allow that. So it took time though, but the machine was able to capture my fingerprint. Because on the day of the exam, before writing the exam, they'll tell you to thumbprint. If at the end of the day your fingerprint does not matches with what they have on their system, you won't be allowed to write. They will say you are not the one who registered for the exam, and also your picture should align with your picture during registration. So the next is that you should keep all your registration slips safe. Now most students are very careless, so after registering their slip they'll just throw it away or abandon it somewhere. Now on your registration slip, there you have your examination number, your registration number, and other details you will need later, as well as when you're pursuing your admission to university. So don't just throw away the registration slip, because it has so many details that you need after your registration. And lastly, you should regularly check for updates. So if you are a student who study at home, or you don't actually move out, so you don't know the trends about the examination, regularly check for updates, like know when they are, or know when the examination will be written, and know certain things about the examination, so that you don't get lost or trapped in one space. Last tip is health and rest. So while preparing for the examination, health and rest should be one of your priority. Now there is this tendency that some students want to stress themselves because they have a lot to cover. Yeah, it's very, very normal. But while you are doing that, don't ignore the place of rest, because this will form a good part of your health, and it's only a healthy body that can support a sharp mind. So as you are preparing for your examination, while you are reading, always bring in rest into consideration. So after reading, take some time to rest. Remember, we talk about the Pomodoro technique, which allows you to read, create time for breaks, so you can also take some breaks as rest. This will help your mind to feel better and refreshed. Just take your brain like a machine. If you overuse a machine, at some point the machine becomes unproductive, or it can even break down. So your body is just like a machine. So if you stress your body beyond its limit, it can break down, and this can affect you while you are preparing for the examination. So like I said, while preparing for the examination, always take good rest, then take adequate sleep. So you can take your sleep to a very shorter period, but that should not be to the detriment of your exam. So if you are sleeping 8 hours before, you can make it 4 or 5 hours, so that you can still have some time to read. So don't just ignore sleep like you are not sleeping at all. You sleep like 1 hour in a day. That will not help you as a student. So get adequate sleep, and also eat brain boosting food like fruits, nuts, vegetables, and the rest, and always stay hydrated. Remember, it's a healthy body that can support a sharp mind. So moving on the things you have to do on the day of the examination. Now this is one very good day that will determine the outcome of your result. So your composure and your ability to do things right on this day will play a very huge role, or will be a great determinant in your UTME score. So what are the things you have to do on the examination day? Number one is preparation. This is very, very necessary. Remember, preparation is the key to success in life. So the first thing you have to do is that you arrive at the examination center at least an hour, so that you can easily settle down. But before I come to this point, let me tell you something. If you are given a particular center and you have never been to that place before, or you don't know the place at all, number one, it is important you go to that place a day before your exam so that you can know that venue. It will be very, very wrong if you are going there on that particular day. I've seen a case of a student where the student was supposed to write her exam that morning by 9 a.m. and she has never been to the venue, so she went to the wrong place at about past 9. I remember her exam is also start by 9. So when she got there, they told her that no, she's at the wrong venue and she has to go to a place that is far away from that place. So imagine if she gets there later, let's say by 9:30 or 10, and you know that her exam was also start by 9, it means she's behind time. So it's very, very important. Number one, if you don't know that center before now, or it's not a place that is close to where you reside, go and know that venue. And now when you know the venue, on that day of your exam, try to arrive early at your examination center so that you can easily settle down. It will be wrong when you start running to the examination looking for your pencil or your exam slip. That will like make you to have an unstable mind. So, and when you're around the center, you easily know how things are done. You know what they want and what they don't want. So next is that you should double check all your necessary documents before the exam. They'll try to bring some certain things like your registration slip, your N9 and the rest. So make sure that these documents are going alongside with you, and you can just place them in a small transparent bag, because you won't be allowed to carry anything except a pencil or maybe a pen and examination slip into the examination. So there's no need for you to start packing unnecessary materials to the examination, but make sure that all the necessary materials are with you while you are going for the examination. So next is that you should follow instructions. So it is very, very, very important for you to follow instructions that you are given during the examination. And number one is that you should dress modestly and smartly and avoid taking things that are well prohibited. So when you go and do your reprint to know your venue, there are some instructions that are written there like do not bring smartwatch and the rest. So it's very, very important. So while you are going for the examination, just try to dress modestly so that you don't get embarrassed at the end of the day, and also avoid taking things that are not prohibited. For example, smartwatch, phones and the rest are not allowed. So they will be very strict and they'll tell you to drop those things outside. So if you drop them outside and after writing the exam you don't find those things, you have taken risk by losing those materials. So avoid taking things that are prohibited, and also adhere to all instructions that are given to you before the examination, during the examination, and even after the examination. At some point they'll say line up for biometrics, so ensure you are there for biometrics. Don't jump into the hall, because if you jump without doing biometrics and when you finish the exam you don't also do your biometrics to sign out, you end up not getting your results. So whatever instructions that are given before the examination, like your biometrics, ensure you do your biometrics. During the examination, when they say okay, put on your computer, put on enter registration number, don't do too fast and don't be left behind. And also whatever instruction is given after the examination, also do it to follow such instructions. So the third tip in this section is time management. Now time management is very important before the examination and during the examination. So how can you manage your time during the examination? The first thing is that you should divide your time wisely across all the subjects to ensure completion. Now in your examination or in the UTME, you'll be given 60 questions from use of English and then 40 questions from the other theory subject, making it a total of 180 questions, and you're expected to answer this number of questions in 2 hours. So if you should divide the number of questions 180 by the time in minutes, which is about 120 minutes, you have about 1 minute to answer each question, and this is a very limited time for some calculation subject. So in answering your questions, you should start with the least time consuming subject. I remember there was a particular mock I took as a student while preparing for the UTME. I started with physics and chemistry because I said, oh, I love calculations. At the end of the day, I couldn't answer my English question and then answer a few biology questions, and my score was so bad because I didn't answer English and answered few of the biology questions. So as a student, in your subject combination, find the ones you are very comfortable answering or the ones that you feel are easier, and also start with theoretical ones before calculation. If you should start your exam with mathematics, you might end up spending a large chunk of your time on mathematics and you just have few minutes left for the other subject. So if you are writing or if you have a subject combination like English, physics, chemistry and biology, it is preferable you start with English or biology, then move to chemistry and then spend your remaining time on physics. Or if you have a solid combination like for the engineering, like use of English, maths, physics and chemistry, it's better you start with English, then move to chemistry, then move to physics and then end with maths, so that you can have more time for the calculation subject. So secondly, start with easy questions and don't ever waste time on a particular question. So if you find out that the question is easy, attempt it, but if you find that it's difficult, leave it till the end. In your exams, you can flag questions you have not answered, or they will be flagged for you, so that at the end of the day, you know the questions you have answered. I think the ones you have answered will be in green, the ones you have not answered will be in red. So when you are done, you see the questions in red. It means you have not answered them. You can then come back and answer it. Don't try to be like, oh, I must get the answer to this question. Probably you solved the first time, you didn't see the answer, you try second time, or you try a second time and you didn't get the answer. Don't keep pushing, just leave that particular question. Then when you are done, you then come back to it, because like I said, you have about 1 minute to every question. And the last thing that you should ensure that you answer all the question. In your exam, there's nothing like negative marking. So if you are given a question, try to make sure that all the questions are answered, even the ones you don't know. You can guess logically and put an answer there. Your answer might just be correct, so ensure that none of the question is left unanswered. Moving on, the fourth tip is staying calm. So generally, anxiety and fear will always tend to set in before the examination, because you start wondering, what does this exam hold for me? What will be my score after the examination? Then tension will also build up during the examination, because that's the major point you feel so tense, because you actually want to get the very best from the exam and you don't want to leave anything untouched. And also, tension will always build up after the exam, because you are wondering, how will my result look like? So generally, examination is always surrounded with anxiety and fear, but you should learn to manage anxiety and fear, and you should remain focused during the exam, because an anxious mind cannot perform well. I've been in an exam where I find it difficult to recognize that IT is equal to it. I start wondering, oh, what's IT? I'm struggling to spell some simple words. So that's how bad anxiety can affect a student during exam. Or sometimes anxiousness might make you not to read a question. Probably the question says the following are not correct, and you are reading the question as the following are correct, and then you start panicking. All the options are correct here, why this, why that? Because you are anxious at that state. So during the exam, why you tend to feel anxious, try to stay calm. And how can you stay calm? Like we said in tip number 3, answer questions you know very well, because if you see hard questions, it will increase your level of panic or your level of anxiousness. So start with the ones you know, so that one will help to relax your nerve before you get to the harder questions. So the last tip in this section is technical issues. Now the JAMB examination or the UTME is a computer based exam. That means you are using the computer. Now some of these computers might have been checked, some might not have been checked, some may just develop sudden fault or errors. So technical issues are bound to occur, but when they happen, number one, remember to stay calm and alert the invigilator, because when you start getting worried or you panic excessively, this might affect your performance in the examination and you might seriously get tense. So why this happen, try to stay calm and then alert the invigilators immediately so that they can sort out the issues on your computer. And one other thing is that even before you start the exam, you are given the computer and you notice some changes in the computer. For example, there was a particular exam I wrote. When I was given my seat, I observed that the screen will blink, come on, it will go off, come on. It kept doing that, though we haven't started. So immediately I quickly informed the invigilator that my computer isn't functioning properly, so they had to move me from that seat to a different seat. So try to stay calm and then allow the invigilators as soon as possible, and don't ever try to submit or log out when you are not done, because once you have submitted, that is the end of the examination. They won't conduct another examination for you. So don't try to submit. And on your computer, the key for submitting is S. So if you press S, they will ask you, do you want to end this exam? So don't ever try to click on yes when you are not done. You can only do that at the end of the exam, because submitting your exam means you are done with that exam. And then, like I said, request for a system change if necessary. So if the computer given to you is having some issues, you can kindly request for a change of system as soon as possible. So moving on, the last thing is what to do after the examination. Now after the examination, it is very important that you do not overanalyze your answers and don't get obsessed with the answers or the exam outcome. Now this is one thing I try not to engage in after I finish an exam. So when most people they finish exam, they will just come together in groups and be like, oh, question 1, what's the answer? Somebody will say A and probably they wrote B. They'll be like, oh, I failed. Probably they can just call like 10 questions for you and just start getting worried, and this will affect your emotion or even your health status, because some persons are unable to manage worry and anxiety. So when you finish the exam, just simply go home and rest. Don't try to analyze the answer. Yeah, it is very important to know why you failed some things, but don't take it too hard so that it start affecting your emotions and your mood, because whatever answers you have written are your answers there, and getting worried or getting anxious will not change the outcome of the exam. So just try to know why you feel the answer, but don't take that too seriously. So the next thing is to monitor your result or the result process. So it is very important that after writing the examination, you seek for information from reliable sources to know when the result will be released, because your result is a determining factor for you to seek admission into higher institution. Now there are some students that after writing the exam, they will ignore the fact that they wrote the exams, so they are not even bothered about the result. So when it's time for them to use the result, probably the school might have written their post-UTME or might have even started giving admission, and that might be too late for the student. So it's important you get your results so that you can plan the next step. So that leads us to the third point, which is planning the next step. So in planning your next step, the first thing you have to do is to discuss options based on the student's score. So this is very important for you to apply for the university of your choice. So there are some universities, for example, most federal universities in Nigeria, the minimum score for you to write their screening exam is 200. So if I have a score of, let's say, 240 or 250, that means I can write their screening examination. But if I have something lesser than 200, that means I can write their post-UTME or their screening exam. Then the next is that you should consider alternative pathway. This is very, very important. Now, if I apply for university and the university says that their minimum score for writing the exam is 200 and I have, let's say, 180, that means your score is below the minimum. So you have to consider alternative pathway. It can be that you do what we call a change of institution. So if I apply for a federal university, like let's say the University of Ibadan, and my score is below their cut-off mark, I can decide to switch to a state school, or it can be a private institution if you have the money to go into private universities. Then you can also consider things like polytechnic or college of education if you are comfortable going to such institutions. So, and also going back to alternative pathway, if you actually want to apply for that particular university, probably you so much prefer that university, you can also decide to write JAMB the second or the coming year. So that's considering alternative pathways. Then the last is learning for the future. So this is very, very important. Whatever experience you've got, it is basically said that they said experience is a good teacher, though not in all cases, but sometimes whatever experience we get should be a reflection and should help us to see the future, or should be able to prepare better for the future. So it's just like, I remember when I was preparing for the UTME, I didn't have a computer before that time. So during the UTME, I started practicing how to use the computer to answer questions and on like that. Then even when I was in 100 level in school, my 100 level exam, I think majority of them were computer based exams. So I was not afraid using the computer because I'm already used to the computer. So whatever experience you get from your exam should be a reflection for you to prepare better. And for me, one other thing I learned from the exam is that you don't have to wait till the last minute. So even in the university, I have learned that okay, I have to prepare as early as possible for the exam. I don't have to wait till the last minute for the exam. So whatever experience you got from the UTME, it's important you reflect on it, whether good or bad. Reflect on it, and it should make you work better in your future endeavors. So if you write the exam and you didn't pass and you didn't get a good score, that should not make you feel like, oh, I'm a very dull student, I don't think I can ever make it. No, you should remove that mindset. So your mindset will not be, okay, where did I miss it? You can probably look at your result and see that, okay, in English I got 70, in biology I got 80, but in physics I got 40, in chemistry I got 30. That means I didn't do well in those subjects. So that should make you to put in more effort into those two subjects, so that the next time you are writing that exam, or even not the UTME, you should be able to do better in those subjects that you didn't perform excellently well. And that is it for this particular video. Remember, success in the UTME is not just about hard work, but also about smart strategies. Follow these tips, stay focused, and believe in yourself. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exam tips and educational content. Wishing you all the best in your UTME journey. Go crush it. See you in my next video.